Hi everyone, it's John Mitchell. In this video, we're going to look at the last point that's about the establishment phase, which is employment arrangements and remuneration. Now, it's important that we're going to go more in depth with this area in terms of how these employment arrangements are negotiated and how we pay our employees. We're going to go more in depth later on in further videos when we talk about employee relations. So all we're going to talk about here, this is only going to be a really quick video about some points that it's important to know about the types of employment arrangements that there are, as well as different types of remuneration. So just if we go back to the establishment phase, we've done our HR planning to work out how many people we need and what kind of jobs we need. We've done a job analysis to again figure out, all right, what's exactly involved in each job, who is best fit for the job, where we got our job description and job specification. With those documents, we could go ahead and do some recruitment to gain a pool of qualified applicants for our job or jobs. And then once with our pool of applicants, we've got a selection. We've gone through selection when we had our 5-step selection process. And then we've come to an agreement where we've gone, yep, this is where we think or who we think is best fit for the organisation in that particular role. Let's make them an offer. Let's call them up or contact them and say, yep, you've been successful, and given them time to think about whether they want to work for our organisation. They've said yes, and now we need to obviously work out what is the employment arrangement. So it's the type of employment, pay and working conditions an employee has. So think back to earlier videos, expectations where we had conditions of employment. This is our arrangement for the type of employment that we have. So it could be full-time, where ongoing employment is normally sort of 35 to 38 hours, depending on what's in your contract. Part-time employees are entitled to pay and conditions based on a pro-rata basis. So if you are 0.8 of full-time, then you'll get 0.8 of the conditions in terms of annual leave. You get 0.8 of the annual leave, 0.8 of the sick leave, etc. Casual employment is where employees are employed on an hourly basis, and those hours can vary. So it's sort of on a need basis, depending on how busy the organisation is. That can help give them some real flexibility. And then another one is fixed term contracts, where an employee is employed for a specific amount of time. So it could be a 6-month contract, a 12-month contract. These are really good for filling gaps in the organisation, I suppose, when people go on maternity leave or go on long-time sick leave, those types of things. So fixed-term contract, or if the organisation has got a project that's going, then we can do a fixed-term contract. So contracts are negotiated through what we call enterprise bargaining. We'll get into that later on, but what enterprise bargaining is where the employer or a group of employees negotiate, or they might have a union that represents them, and they negotiate with their employer. That's all that is. So as I said, we'll get into more depth in that when we talk about employer relations further down the track. But it's a negotiation between the employer and the employee. So that's important. That's what enterprise bargaining is. And so remuneration, obviously we have to decide how we're going to pay our employees, because remuneration is the financial payment that an employer receives for the work they do. A few different things that you may talk about in terms of answers, but you've obviously got a wage, which is where you're paid for the hours that you work. A salary is a bit different. So, for example, most teachers are on a salary where they're paid an annual amount, and all the extra things that they do in terms of parent-teacher interviews, camps and those type of things, that's built into the salary. So so it's not like they do overtime and get paid more like in other industries like the police, fire department, those types of things, where they're paid an hourly wage. Superannuation, it's important that for most employees, if you're earning, these days this changes regularly, but at the moment it's around, I think it's $450. They have to be paid minimum 9.5% in superannuation, and then you can obviously include in your remuneration and in your conditions of employment other benefits such as car, laptop, phone, childcare facilities, and anything else you can think of that you can put in there to try and attract really strong employees. It's important that an organisation offers fair pay for their employees, and that can help retain good employees, because remember, we're talking about here, we've got an employment cycle that, all right, we want to try and attract really good talent, but also really good employees that fit in with the culture of the organisation. And once, if hopefully through selection you've made a good decision, This can be one factor, and it's only one factor, remuneration, but one factor that can help retain those employees in terms of keeping them there if you give them some really strong remuneration and benefits. Obviously, we think back to our motivation theories. There are other things that will help retain our employees and reduce staff turnover, like motivation and responsibility, all those kinds of things. But this is still an important factor for many employees. So it's important that we're competitive in the market in terms of what we remunerate our employees and what benefits we give them. So just to recap on the establishment phase, we started with HR planning, went through a job analysis and then a job design. Out of that came a job description and job specification. With those two documents, we can go and recruit qualified employees because we know what the job is and we know who's best fit for the job. So if we know that information, we can go and find them. And with our recruitment, we can either do internal or external recruitment. And remember, you need to know the advantages and disadvantages of those. Selection. This is the selection process that we use, but keep in mind that there's no specific selection process in the study design, so any logical process should be fine. So you're screening, shortlisting, where you're narrowing down, sorting through your applications and narrowing down, and then your final few, you interview, do background checks, tests, and then you notify them. Once you've selected the right employees, we decide on what kind of employment arrangement. Are they going to be full-time, part-time, and anything else? And then we need to figure out what we're going to remunerate our employees, and hopefully they'll sign on the dotted line and agree to that employment contract. So that is the establishment phase, and in the next video we'll begin in the maintenance phase. So you can see here at this stage, no one has begun, they haven't started their first day at work or anything like that. And so that's what establishment is all about, is first of all just establishing that relationship, and then when they actually begin working with the organisation, that's in the maintenance phase.